Well, folks, despite starting 2023 off on a sour note and being generally dismal throughout the entirety of it, it looks like Wizards of the Coast is trying to get into 2024 on a slightly more positive one. We'll talk about that in just a second, but before we do, of course, I'd like to remind you all that this video is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde makes the kind of adventures they'd like to play, whether it's for 5th editions, Castles and Crusades, or the OSR. Old School is in play at the table with Hellebarde Games, and you can find them on DriveThruRPG or on their website, hellebardegames.com. Now, let's go ahead and get into this because this is some rather interesting news, and this comes to us courtesy of Vinny Notarbartolo, and I want to thank him very much for sending us this link, which, of course, we've put below. This past week at PAX Unplugged, which is the Penny Arcade exposition for tabletop gaming, for board games, for TTRPGs, and all that sort of thing. And Penny Arcade is, of course, a multimedia concern. They started with their own webcomic back in the late 90s, I think, just called Penny Arcade. And they've expanded out to have a video game convention and, of course, the aforementioned tabletop convention. Well, Wizards of the Coast gave a panel which they recorded and put on their own YouTube channel, which I'll link below. And let's just take a quick look at what they had to say. Let me see if I can bring that up for you guys. For those interested in D&D history, the making of original Dungeons & Dragons 1970 to 1976 is a book focusing on the creation of the first edition of D&D that will release on June 18, 2024. It provides a page-for-page replica of the original game, correspondence involving its creation, and a commentary providing a historical retrospective adding up to a 500-plus page volume overall. Considering the date range given in the title, it seems possible that it could be the start of a series going through the history of the game, although no announcement has been made regarding future books. And let's take a quick look here because this is a screenshot. Hopefully you guys will be able to see this. This is a screen grab from the Penny Arcade Expo, and I'll cover up my handsome face for just a moment here with that. And yeah, you can see from early book proofs, they've got those in there. So that's going to be real interesting to see what they've got going on. Now, I have watched some of the video myself, and it's towards the end, so you don't have to sit through the whole thing. Just kind of move your YouTube slider until you see those images pop up. And I believe it's Chris Cox or Kyle Brink talking about how now you'll be able to read through this and go on the same journey that I did, and you can ask yourself, how is this even a game? Which, of course, further points up the fact that the stewardship of Dungeons & Dragons is bad. I don't know if Chris Cox came into D&D or Kyle Brink, whichever one of them said it. I don't know if they came into Dungeons & Dragons being spoon-fed by 3.5 or 4th edition or however they did. But of course, not only did just some people figure out how to play original Dungeons & Dragons and enjoy the hell out of it, so many people figured it out that by March of 1974, Dungeons & Dragons was completely sold out. And indeed, TSR had more people responding to surveys in the Strategic Review and the Dragon than they had sold copies of original D&D, which means they were seeing people with mimeographed copies, early photographed copies, and indeed some handmade copies. Like, somebody sat down at the Winchester there and hammered out a complete copy of OD&D. But again, we don't expect Wizards of the Coast to exactly get it when it comes to this kind of thing. But I want to stay positive and I want to be positive about this because this is surely some good news. Now, again, this is slated to come out in June. I think they really, really, really missed the boat. And I had mentioned this back in the fall, and I'll eat a little bit of crow. When I mentioned this in the fall and the summer, and indeed back in the spring, that we were barreling towards the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons, and it didn't look like Wizards of the Coast was planning to do anything. Honestly, I think the OGL debacle probably kneecapped them, and they had to switch all of their energy to trying to fix that, and then they've had one misstep after the other. Bad stock reports, pissing off Magic the Gathering fans, sending the Pinkertons to a Magic the Gathering fan's house, and all the blowback from that. Nobody really liking their new digital tabletop initiative and that sort of thing. So I think they have had a lot of problems trying to get everything back organized and everything back on the table, and this has been very much in the background for them. I think had they not screwed up the nuking the OGL, had the fan reaction been more muted, had they not sent corporate cops to a YouTuber's house to basically shake him and his wife down, I think we probably would have seen this a little bit closer to the actual release time of original Dungeons & Dragons, which was in January or so. And also, they probably want to stick it someplace where it's not going to overshadow the release of 6th edition. And that's what it will be. It will be 6th edition. Don't kid yourself about 1D&D or whatever. So they probably had way too much going on to give this the attention that it should have deserved. But again, I'm willing to step back and admit two things. One, this is a very good thing. And two, that this is an acknowledgement of Dungeons & Dragons on its 50th anniversary, regardless of the reading comprehension of the people at Wizards of the Coast and their inability to understand OD&D. But that's a discussion for another time. Now, a 500-page book with all of OD&D in it might not be the most convenient way to get your hands on original D&D, but if you're interested in the history of the game and the approach that Wizards of the Coast is going to take in memorializing it and studying it, then this book might be for you. Clocking in at 500 pages, it's probably not going to be a terribly convenient tome to haul with you from one game to the other. But of course, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. Price-wise, we have no indication, but if Art and Arcana was any clue, then I would suspect $50 or $60 for this thing once you clock in various discounts and whatnot. But do pick it up from your FLGS if you're interested in OD&D and you want everything bound into a single volume. But of course, I'd like to know what you guys think. So please leave a comment down below, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And when this book comes out, I'll be sure to get my hands on a copy and give you guys a review of it and let you know what I think. Do you think this is a positive step for Wizards of the Coast? Do you think maybe they're getting out from under the shadow of an absolutely abysmal 2023? Let me know below. And of course, I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, peace, be good to each other, and keep your OD&D sets dry. Bye-bye.